Hello, Wapplers from around the world. Welcome to our November 2024 Wappler Meetup. Glad you could join us today. We have a very, very special guest, known and renowned around the world for his Wappler expertise, Mr. Brian English. I wish I had a drum roll here. I could really claps. All right. Brian, thank you very much for joining us today. And before I turn it over to you, I want to invite all the Wapplers out there. If you have a special tip or trick or a new website you'd like to show off, we'd love to give you the opportunity to show it to Wapplers around the world. So just reach out to Mark one in the forum. Without further ado, here is Mr. Brian English.
Hello. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Good to see you all. Can I just say what amazing write-up Mark gave me for the intro to this? I sort of feel as if I should be running for president or prime minister in England or whatever with that sort of recommendation. But what are we going to do today? I'm going to just run you through. Some of you are aware I've done some one signal extensions. I've also been doing a bit of work on Twilio. I'm just going to show you what's coming in relation to Twilio regarding its functionality. So I thought rather than just run a video as we've sort of done in the past, I would do a walkthrough. So guessing what I'll do is I'll go through it section by section. We'll break at the end of each section. If you want to ask any questions at all, then go ahead, do that. And then when everybody's happy, we'll move on to the next one. So if everybody's okay with that, I'll get a screen share going and we'll make a start.
That's awesome.
All right. Hopefully you're now seeing
We are.
screen. That's okay. That's great. For those of you who have never used OneSignal, basically, it's a messaging service. It allows you to send those push notifications to your websites, to do SMS notifications, and to send emails. It's a commercial service. I'm implemented this through custom Wappler extensions, basically the API calls in the background, and it allows you to do all of the functionality. If I was just to quickly create a API action in there. And if I go down, they're in the notification modules, and you'll see there is a lot of them. These are all, basically, I've tried to implement every piece of functionality that is available from OneSignal. A couple of them you'll see here untested. That's purely because I haven't got the functionality to test them set up. I think there's one that even OneSignal themselves are having trouble getting working. This one here. But other than that, they all seem to be functional. There's maybe the odd bit of functionality missing on the odd ones, but you shouldn't see any error messages. So what I'm going to do is just work through this and tell you how to set things up. So didn't want to do that. Yeah, let's just close that. First of all, you need to set up your service worker within your layout page. Say this is Node at the moment. I haven't, and to be honest, don't have any plans to extend this to PHP. So your service worker is the important thing because that's what monitors your users and messages between your application and OneSignal itself. And that's a lot simpler than you perhaps think it is. What we have is first of all, go into files, one file here, which is dropped into your public directory of your Node application. And it actually only has one line in it. And that's it. It just basically imports a script from a CDN directly. Once you put that in place, you need to add a little bit of code in your layout page and say all of this is available on the OneSignal website. So you have absolutely no worries about having to write the code yourself. And here we have a little section of DS here. And again, that is copy and pastable from the One Signal website. I've made a little tweak. I've actually I've set the One Signal app ID as its One Signal ID. That's your unique ID for your application into a variable, and I have DMX passed it. When I find that in there, so in this one, I've got three different versions. You'll see I've actually got that directly into the code there. And that's it. That's your service worker done. No, I'm looking in the wrong place. My apologies. I did, in fact, yes, correct. DMX passed that into the JavaScript, but there's no reason why you couldn't have just hard coded that in, just put that value directly into the code there. And that's it. That's your One Signal service worker side of things set up. So once you go into your website, that will do all of the monitoring that's required to be able to keep you talking effectively to One Signal. Has anybody got any questions at this stage?
Brian, what is the server worker subdirectory?
Ignore that. That is a failed custom extension that I started working on. I'm looking at ultimately having an App Connect extension that will install all of the service worker code automatically. Sort of got halfway through that and abandoned it because of the other things. But so that's not relevant at the moment, Ben. But well spotted. Anybody else? Okay, let's go on to the actual applications themselves. Got lots of already made API actions here. So the first thing you would do is in your website, a person would go to the website and they would get the usual, do you want to subscribe? Yes, no option. I can't actually do that because I'm already subscribed on them all, but I'm quite sure you know the type of notification that comes through. You see them every day within web apps. And once you do that, just drag this on screen, you will see that when they okay that to join, you will then get the appropriate subscription that gets added to your One Signal account. Just before going any further, anybody got any questions about One Signal itself and setting up of accounts?
So all of this is then managed on their side of the house.
Yeah, basically you're just sending API calls from Wappler to One Signal. They will then push out the notifications, SMSs or emails, and obviously you'll get the response back from that API confirming or not.
So this can replace Postmark.
No, I mean, Postmark primarily is for testing your APIs, isn't it? Oh no, I'm thinking of Postman. Sorry, I don't know Postmark, so quite possibly yes.
Okay.
You probably better answer that one, Jim, when you see the functionality itself,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to compare it. Okay, so let's try the first one. The obvious one that we've got is I'm just going to send a web push. So there we've got our web push action there. If I click on that, you'll see that some of these are pretty long. I've tried not to put too much content in them at this stage. If people need additional functionality, if they contact me directly, I will add that in. I just didn't want to put like 100 boxes into one API action because it's going to be confusing. So I put one I thought was the important ones. A target channel, obviously this is a push notification to all segments. Again, if we look into One Signal itself, you'll see that One Signal allows you to define different subscription groups effectively. I'm just sending it to everybody. You can link a template, and I'll talk about templates later. And then last of all, you have the web push heading and the web push messages. Now you'll see these allow for different languages. It's mandatory to have the English version in. That's One Signal's decision, not mine. And you basically have a heading and then you have a message. And if you want to add other languages in here, let's say French, you just add it in like this. If I could learn to spell. And what would happen is that will match on the browser settings that the user is using. So if they're using browser settings in English, they'll get the English message. If they're using browser settings in the French version, then they will get the French message. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but you can add aliases to persons, and you can target those individual aliases. But the big one basically is the images that you will see within the notification itself. And that does vary between browsers. Some browsers will show more information than others. At the moment, this application I've got linked in through Firefox, so we'll see the Firefox version. But I think one thing I want to show you is what I've done with all of these is you'll see a link at the bottom, and that will link you to the documentation about that particular call. So I click that link within Wappler, then there we are. It will actually then tell you about push notifications, and you can go through and see all of the different switches, what all of these different pictures do. You'll see it's horrendous really, because you've got so many different options for so many different platforms, which is why I haven't implemented absolutely everything. But to say, I'm happy to add it in if people need it. So let's cut the mustard. I want to send that message now. So I'm just going to run that directly from the API action. So I'm going to open the browser. Better save it first. There we see we've got the return message for status 200. We've got the API call, and for some reason that hasn't come through. I'll just try that again. My apologies. It does not normally happen, I'll show you. But these things always happen when you're demoing, don't they?
Absolutely.
Let's try that again. You know what? This happens to. It can take a minute or two to come through, but normally this is pretty instant. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Give me a moment. Just check that I'm definitely in here. Yeah, what can I say? For some reason, it's not coming through. My apologies. If I go into so we'll get there. The push notification, sorry, in here, if we look at the messages, sent messages, you'll see those messages are going out. For some reason, they're not being picked up at the end. Sorry, all I can do is apologize for that. And for some reason, that's just not working the way it should. On that one, other than Brian, why isn't it working? Any questions?
Do you have any experience with a click send? And if you do, what's the difference between Twilio and click send?
I don't. To be honest, I had no experience of Twilio or One Signal before. For some bizarre morning, I woke up and thought, I think I'll write some extensions for them because people keep talking about them. So I've really learned the whole setup on the hoof, and I've never actually used the product in a production environment in the past. Might in the future if I decide to do some work, but as you know, I'm retired now, so I'm not really looking to do that sort of thing.
Did you have to? Bob did a presentation a couple months ago that was really good about APIs, and at the beginning you had to um, convert the. Bob, maybe help me out here. You had to do the key and the secret key in your
Yeah.
mouth.
Um, give me a sec. These are all actually set up in environment variables. And that's possibly why it didn't work. Oh, no, because I know that we're in the right place. Set up in environment variables, and they are automatically called from there. The documentation for that is in my videos. I don't want to show you in this live situation because obviously some of those keys are very sensitive and I don't want to risk exposing them. But basically, there's a number of different environment variables that you have to define to be able to get this to work. If I just look, we'll have a quick look at the code just so you can see what I'm talking about. Create push notification. Nope. On the JS version. What you see there is that we do actually access your environment variables of your app IDs, etc. So this is basically all of the parsing of your inputs from your HJSON input. And the actual calls themselves are fairly straightforward. You've got your endpoint, your method, you've got your authorization, which is in most cases the one signal REST API key. I think there's two that for some reason use a different key. And then you're sending the object to the call, you're passing the return forward and returning it. They're actually the API actions themselves are very simple. If any of you are thinking, well, why didn't you use the one signal node NPM library? The reason is at the moment that is temporarily depreciated. One signal are shifting from what they call a player-based platform to a user-based platform, and that NPM setup is now out, a lot of it is out of date and doesn't work. So they advised me when I contacted them to use the API calls directly rather than trying to use any libraries related to that. Any questions?
Well, the API calls are more modern, right? That was me. Sorry. This is my first time. The API calls are a more modern way to process these, right?
Well, I mean, the beauty of it is that it's easier to maintain the code if you're following the developer's own guidelines or the most basic level. Then if anybody wanted to take this further, if I wasn't available, drop down dead or whatever, it's much easier for people to be able to take it over and continue development. It's the same methodology that likes of Wappler team use when they did the likes of Stripe, etc., which is just basically a whole batch of API calls with a JSON-based interface to pass the parameters to it. Okay, awesome. I shall move on. So next thing, okay, you want to send a email, sorry, an SMS message, a text message. This is where Twilio comes in. I've got a Twilio account. Now, if you are going to be sending out high volumes of text messages, SMS messages, then you might be better getting your number via one signal. They do a pretty good large capacity account. If you're just going to be using it fairly casually, hundreds, etc., maybe a few thousand a month, then I would suggest that you actually pop over to Twilio, create an account there, and then one signal does allow you to interface through the Twilio. It's all part of their system. They do it for you effectively. And that works out a lot cheaper, and it's effectively a pay-as-you-go system. I think I put $10 or $20 onto the account, and I think they charge me about 1/10 of a penny to send a message. So that's going to last me a long time, and they will allocate you a phone number. And there's basically, this is your sending number. This is where the messages will come from. You've got message numbers from right around the world. If you're in the States, you're also able to send multimedia messages. Outside the States, you're limited to voice, SMS, and they actually cover fax as well. And I'll be coming back to Twilio in more detail towards the end of the presentation. So having set that integration up within OneSignal, and it prompts you to do that. Basically, if you say you want to add an SMS subscription to it, it will take you through a wizard type situation to be able to set it up. So the first thing obviously you need to do is to be able to add a telephone number to your OneSignal account. And in here somewhere among these 1,000,001 actions, we will find the appropriate action. I'm looking for. All right, there we've got add subscription. So you would create this add subscription API action, you'd call that. You can do that via an alias if you wish, and you tell it the type of subscription that you want to create. In this case, I'm going to create an SMS, and they will need the number of the account that you're going to add. And when you run that action, that will subscribe that telephone number to your OneSignal account. So I would say it typically used, if you've got a members area within your website, subscribers, you're going to ask them for that telephone number. And then if they give that, you're going to automatically subscribe them to the system. And if you run that subscription, should get away with this, I think. Again, you'll see we've got a return of status 200, and that tells us that number has been added to that account. I'm just going to mention why I'm doing that. You'll see these status messages. Bizarrely, OneSignal doesn't actually return status messages in the case of successful events. So I've actually had to manually stuff a status message into there. So in all calls, there will be the last entry in that will be the status. So you'll be able to check within your code that that message has worked correctly. And then once you've actually added that subscription in there, we now have an action where we should find SMS push, SMS notification, and then you can just send the notifications now. That in this case, that's your Twilio phone number that you've got in there. You can add your SMS push messages in here. Segments and filters, I'm not even going to touch on this because that would be a presentation in itself. You can also include other numbers in there to do that. And again, if you ever get stuck, don't forget, you always have this ability to be able to pop up the documentation directly from the API call. Obviously, I can't really demonstrate this. Send that. You just have to take my turn. Every time you will always have this message ID that's returned, which is what effectively tells you that it's there. Tells us that there is an external ID associated with it and a status 200. That will then have sent the phone number to all of the subscribed members that are subscribed with SMS. Filters will be where that would come in, where you can tell it only to send to certain groups. But say it's quite a complicated process, and you have to set some quite lengthy JSON within that filter field. So it's really beyond this presentation at its time. So good place to pause. Any questions?
I may be getting ahead of you here. When uh, how do you bring the information back from Twilio or OneSignal uh, into your database to say that it's been confirmed or?
Well, yeah, I'm going to get what you mean. If we look at the
I don't want to get out of order here.
responses,
You can.
yeah, I'll just try to if you look, each response returns a JSON object, and that is available in the picker. That's probably one of the biggest jobs I had to do with the setting up of this, because a lot of the documented structures that are returned are not actually accurate. But if I was to say go into set value and go into the picker, you can actually see there that the API return is available within the picker. So you can just simply select that. You can have your database insert routine, for example, and then you can just pick those objects directly from the output of that API action. So it works in exactly the same way as if it was a native Wappler API database call or whatever. Does that cover what you wanted there, Mark?
Wappler makes it so easy.
It does. The big problem is that some of these calls return pretty vast amounts of information, and that some of the schema definitions are a bit of a nightmare to write, where you've got nested objects, etc. But I have actually found a quick way of doing that, so that's working okay. Any questions on that?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I'll just go on to the last bit. It seems silly to ignore it, and that is email, because as well as your SMS, you can also send out email. So we've got email subscription. No, we're going to our add subscription that we had before. We can just as easily drop this down and say, no, make this an email instruction. You would then add your email in there as the token and send that. Should have mentioned there's also an enable there. You need to do that to make it what you can actually do is create the account but not activate it. You need to click that enable, and that would add that email to your dashboard. So again, if I was to go into subscriptions, you'll see in this case here, that's an email push that I've set now, and that sends email to my personal email address. So that's nice. It really is quite easy to use, I hope. And then lastly, of course, you then have to send that email. So we got an email push action. A little bit more to it than SMS, because obviously you can add a bit more. What I haven't added in this yet is the ability to attach images. The functionality is there if people need it. Just haven't actually done that. But you send an email subject, an email body from the email address where it's coming from. You can set your reply, email pre-headers. And be honest, I totally understand what that's about myself, but it seems to me they can actually put something inside the header itself of the message. And all of these you can alternatively use based on a template. And again, we've got the filters, etc. in the same way. So in this one, if we want to send a email message, does anybody else have this problem? Maybe linked to the beta or whatever, but every so often I find that development mode, I have to restart the node server. There we are, restarting. It's got that back. There's our return there, and that email will then have been sent to. I'm just going to drag this up the screen if you don't mind. Just see if that email's come through yet. Sorry. There we are. You see, that's the email push. So it's email functionality, but it allows you to be able to effectively mass mail through OneSignal itself to send out notifications, and they will rate limit them, etc., automatically for you, so you don't have to worry there. Throwing that in, one of the things I'm thinking of doing is a MailChimp set of extensions fairly soon, but for the moment, that'll have to do you. Any questions on that one?
I have a question for the group. My experience, the email pre-header in some email clients appears after the subject line. So it gives the sender an opportunity to send some additional information, maybe a call to action. Does anybody have experience with email pre-headers?
Nope.
No, I mean, it's a functionality that when I find time, I will have a play with. Got quite a lot on my plate at the moment. So I've actually sort of had to step away from the OneSignal development for a short while, but I will be coming back to it, and that's one of the targets. The big one that I want to do is to do a series covering how to use filters, because that's really important to be able to target your messages, whether they be just notifications or whatever, to specific clients that you've set up. And you have the ability to add tags and all sorts to those clients and send only to those particular ones. So it's a very, very powerful system.
Okay.
That's probably about as far as I should be going up through on OneSignal itself. So
how did you find, one last question, Brian, how did you find, well, if anybody else has any, jump in, how did you find the support from OneSignal? Is it
very good? They were very good. Their first line technical support actually are technical, which is quite unusual compared with other companies where you go, oh, we'll have to escalate this to a higher level. A couple of places I sent them code. The only bit irritated me was in a couple of places where I sent them message saying, your example documents are actually wrong. You've missed this out. This is how you fix it. And I've actually got to respond on one occasion to say, oh, I'm pleased to see you've been able to make this work. And they'd just forgotten to stringify adjacent input, but it was in their sample code. But I don't think they're keen to do an awful lot of major changes, because they are doing this major review of the structure, say, moving from, as they put it, player's architecture to a user's architecture. And I think they need to review all of their documentation and their support libraries as well.
Do you see that coming in the near future, or, I mean, like a month away or a couple of months?
I really don't know how long. I mean, I think the restructuring is complete. Certainly all of my extensions are based around their new users architecture rather than the old players architecture. Okay. But I noticed some of their docs certainly need updating. And as I say, that the OneSignal node NPM library, which is what I would normally have used, a lot of it didn't work because of the changes. So I just had to abandon that and rewrite a lot of this again, going back down to API level. And that should give it the resilience to be able to move through any changes that they implement.
I've got a question, I guess. So, I mean, it looks like pretty extensive extension development here. I mean, I guess I haven't done anything that's custom like this. I mean, because when you're looking at the properties and the stuff that's on the right-hand side there, you coded all that in. Is that right? That's done. How do you troubleshoot?
I'll show you. That's done through HJSON, which is, it's all documented. There's your web push, and there's actually far more code in doing the defining the interface than there is in actually implementing the call. But this is fairly standard stuff that you have to do for any of your custom extensions. You use the HJSON to define the interface, and that defined interface will work with any language. So if you were developing in PHP, it wouldn't change the JSON at all. You actually tell it which server models you're targeting to be able to allow the NPMs not to install on the wrong language platforms. And then once you've done that, you have your JS, which is often much, much simpler. Basically, a JS is pass the options passed from these. Each of these objects, all of these will become an option within the function call, and then you need to pass them because obviously you need to get the content rather than the name. If you've got a calling another API's content, then it needs to pass that and get the content. And then, as say, the actual API call itself is simple.
Right.
Extensions on a lot easier than you think. If you haven't done them before, they're actually quite easy to do, and they can be immensely powerful.
Well, I've just always seen the point where somebody says in the forum, well, you could create a custom, you could just create a custom extension, and that's usually when I'm like, nah, I'm going to look for something different. I don't.
Well, I mean,
I don't think my skill level's quite there yet.
I do have a series on YouTube there on how to build them, and with a fairly, straightforward explanation of how they work stage by stage. You might want to take a look at that. You can sometimes add some great features by very, very simple API calls.
I'll look at that.
Yeah. Anybody else?
You don't have this running in a production world. You're just.
I don't. The reason at the moment, Jim, is that I actually retired a year ago.
Right.
I sort of dumped all of my my clients, other than a few sort of friends and family type situations. I have on a couple of occasions been asked to sort of dip into somebody else's system to put things right. And it's quite good for me to sort of keep my hand in and keep the skills up. But no, I haven't is the simple answer, because I'm not doing that type of work now. That's why I'm very much classing this as beta. What I do say is that if you do have problems, just contact me and I'll certainly try and either resolve the problem for you, fix the code or whatever. But certainly none of these calls have returned error messages. So I'm fairly confident that the code is actually running. It will maybe just be if there's some issues with how functionality is put in, things like filters are, say, complicated and might need a little bit of tweaking here and there to use the really extended features.
Postmark, just so you know, Brian, Postmark just does the email portion of what you've got there.
Got you. So this is extra functionality.
That's what intrigues me with this is I can get rid of that one and just have the APIs do this and offer now a text messaging or something else. But
yeah. So I'm just going to probably a good point, and if everybody's happy, is next bit that I'll be offering. When I find it, no,
that's a lot of websites for a retired guy.
Oh, that's only the ones I've got on the on the interface. I've got an awful lot more after that. Right. So other one I'm doing is Twilio. I thought while I'm busy, if I've got the Twilio account, let's have a look and see. I'll just make sure that I've got the right setup here. Excuse me, I should really have looked at this before I came in, but this was all very last minute, I'm afraid.
You're doing great.
I keep putting two L's in Twilio. I really shouldn't. No, I think I'm probably in the wrong place here. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm in the completely wrong place here. It probably actually is in the one signal, in truth. Twilio, that's it. Once you've got that Twilio set up, done, then you can use Twilio as an alternative to send your text messages. Really, really easy one. This one, it's a from and a to. Usual, it functions as a name. You've got a message, a to and from number, and run that, and that will send the message. This one, there we are. We've got the JSON returned, and you'll see that that gives you the confirmation that that has been sent. The other one that I think is really what tempted me over at the Twilio side as well is Twilio WhatsApp. WhatsApp's becoming really big as a communication platform between service developers. So again, there's a WhatsApp option. So this is the reason why I haven't released this yet. This has been tested at sandbox level, so I can use lots of fake numbers and things like that. But I haven't actually tested it in a full production environment yet. So this will probably come maybe next weekend or thereabouts. So you'll be able to use your one signal extensions for your SMS, your mail, and your normal push notifications. You'll also be able to use Twilio for single message text messages, but also you'll be able to interface with WhatsApp and use a WhatsApp platform to contact your customers as well. And I think that in itself is going to be a really useful feature. That's about everything I needed to tell you today. Please, questions if you have. If you want to ask me anything else at all while I'm here, feel free. We've sort of got 5 minutes or so before Mark will be twitching to close the message. So anybody, any questions?
I'll ask the first one to get it started, then other Wapplers are more than welcome to follow on. More of a personal question. Are you busier now that you've retired than when you were working?
Oh, definitely not. It's great, Mark. I get up in the morning, and if I feel like doing a bit of work, I'll jump on the computer. And I mean, those I think there's 47 one signal modules there or thereabouts. And most of the case, I get up in the morning. I always get up earlier than my good lady. I'll get up in the morning, make a cup of tea, write a couple of modules, by which time it was time to take her a cup of tea and wake her up. And after that, I might not look at the computer for the rest of the day, which is a great way to be.
That's good. I aspire to your level.
You'll get old like me one day, Mark.
I kind of have a pseudo off-topic question there. You were showing the browser, and then it was your return response, and then you clicked on a little circle button or something.
Oh yeah, that's just a plugin.
Okay.
It's called JSON View. It's a Chrome plugin. I absolutely love it. Click on that, and it actually formats it properly, the JSON, so you can see exactly what it looks like. And
So yes, JSON View.
Yeah, that's it. You literally just click on it. So if you just pop into Chrome, it's just one of the many Chrome extensions available for addition. And yeah, it allows you to make sense of these some particularly long, sometimes responses that you get.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Looks useful.
Does one of the things about email these days is it's amazing. We absolutely have to have email to do business, but email is terribly unreliable. Whether it goes into spam, is the email sending is the key. Now I've been using Postmark with some pretty good success on getting emails through. Did anybody have any real live experience using other services like OneSignal or others?
Yeah, if nobody else wants to jump in there, I really can't attest to how good the OneSignal delivery is, other than you've got to jump through a few hoops when you sign up for either email or text messages with OneSignal and or Twilio. They do a lot of verification of who you are. You have to go through an approval process. So I would hope that sort of generally the web would recognize the integrity of emails coming off the OneSignal platform. So I would hope that they would be as good as any of getting through to your clients.
I use Postmark, and I set that up about 18 months ago. And I had trouble initially with the same type of thing, Mark, with SendMail. In fact, I was getting them bounced right away, even in the testing. And I just moved everything. I was able to get everything over to Postmark. And just like Brian said, they get the big verification and all of that, which is, doing legit business. So that's fine with me. But that's where I'm using and have been happy with it. And I get good transactional reports. And just when I saw the OneSignal, the concept of getting more than one API, one company to deal with instead of dealing with multiples, and get some of that up. So
Excellent.
Right. How can I just ask everybody a question? And because I haven't used Postmark, I said I was thinking of perhaps using MailChimp in the future, or doing an API work on MailChimp. Would people prefer Postmark to MailChimp? I don't know who uses which of the platforms.
Sorry,
Anybody
I've got experience with MailChimp.
You have or you haven't?
I do not have experience with
Yeah.
MailChimp.
yeah.
Yep.
I haven't either. I've always understood MailChimp to be more of its own tool to send emails and do that versus.
Well, it's effectively a mass mailing platform with filtering, etc., in the same way that you have with OneSignal.
Basically, MailChimp is like a constant contact.
Gotcha.
Got you.
Right.
So it's a case of, well, if I'm going to jump, I'm not promising here. This is just depends what mode I wake up in the morning type of thing. But would people prefer Postmark or MailChimp? I suppose the question. I'm not going to say I'll do both. I might end up doing it, but I'm not going to say I am at this stage. No preferences, folks.
My feeling is Postmark is mentioned more in the forums.
Okay.
In MailChimp.
I'll switch my attention from MailChimp to Postmark. I'll have a look at it, and provided the API.
I'd say the other thing to look at when you do that, Brian, is look at the cost.
Yeah, well, that's you've got to remember when I write these exam, I've already punted quite a bit of money. Not in thousands or anything, but every time I develop these, I have to register accounts. I have these all paid accounts, etc. And I do accrue a cost attached to all of this extension development. So, I try not to use anything that's too expensive for me to set up as well.
I moved some of my smaller accounts, in fact, over to your Orange Host site. So
You're using that. I'm a little bit disappointed with them. They were really good with support in the early stages, and then they've just suddenly gone, we don't want to do that. The last time I contacted them, they said, no, there's nothing wrong with our platform. We've got thousands of users, and they aren't reporting problems. It's all Wappler's fault. But in reality, this was a setup problem that before I'd even dropped Wappler onto it. So I got annoyed with it. I thought, that's it, cancelling all my accounts, which I did.
For what it's worth, Postmark has a free level with up to 100 emails per month.
Got you. Well, hopefully, if the API actions are the same, then obviously 100 would do me for testing, no problem at all. I'll take a look at that. I can't promise I'll do it, but I will certainly take a look.
I figured it out, Brian. So it's pretty easy.
Oh, you probably people. I'm sure people think I'm a lot cleverer than I am. Believe me.
That's half our job, isn't it?
Yeah, bullshit. Yeah.
All right, very good. But does anybody else have any other questions or any of the topics you'd like to discuss?
Yes, it all forgive me for getting in so late. I couldn't make my Zoom app work for some reason. Nonetheless, I've just come in on the tail end. I was excited to see that Brian was being the host on this.
Thank you.
Very much so. Brian, if I can, I'm looking for something like a direct message of a link or something. What I'm hoping for is some kind of walkthrough for using Stripe. And I specifically wanted to answer that, especially in the part of getting success. I've got everything made except for once a successful payment has gone through, connecting back to the thing to where I can get to collect the customer information, product information, whatnot, update my own database, so on and so forth. That's where I'm lost.
Got you.
And
I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I used Stripe a little. I did a couple of videos on it back in the days when you had to do that through API calls. Since Wappler released Stripe and all its extensions, I've never used them. It's something I've looked at and thought I really should get my act together.
Well,
I've never had reason to.
I like to chime in on the Stripe thing.
yeah.
I'm literally amazed at what ChatGPT knows about Stripe, because I was having some issues with when an order wouldn't go through, and then getting the data back from Stripe telling me what the actual error is. And ChatGPT, I asked a question, then it's like bam, 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 and then I'm like, well, here's my endpoint. And then ChatGPT just says, bam, here's what your endpoint should look like. And I was amazed at the ability of ChatGPT to know, because when you look at your end hooks and what Stripe sends back to you, you have to tell it which data you actually want back. And ChatGPT is really good. Instead of reading all their documents, just ask ChatGPT, and I was amazed at the data it gave me.
Right. Well, I'm looking at not tutorials, but the responses that have been put up there on some of the posts on the community. And there's just one that seems to have my answer on it, but I'm at a loss where I don't recognize the screen. It's saying you got to go into the server connect stuff, and I'm going, I've never seen that particular thing. I couldn't find where it is. So I'm at a loss right now trying to be able to get, once I get a successful purchase, I've got it where I've got the customer ID coming back from the session ID that Stripe has replaced it, but I just can't grab anything from it. That's where I'm at a loss. I'm kind of looking for help. And naturally, as involved as you are, Brian, I was kind of hoping you had done so.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to pop out a post regarding what your problem is, I'm sure we can work that out for you. No problem.
Do you have a post on the forum about it yet?
Have I posted anything about it? No. I mean, I posted a tremendous amount. I mean, if you guys don't remember me, I'm Jay Pena, and I was the one that was totally pro for PayPal because of the old way that we used to use the PayPal shopping cart, which I loved. But the Wappler went the version of Stripe, so okay, fine. I'm pulling out a lot of hair. Thank God I got a lot of it, and I was able to make it successful. But this is where I'm at a loss. And this thing's ready to launch and whatnot, and I can launch it, but I still want to be able to take it to the next level in retrieving the information and updating my own database.
I've done several of those sites. I mean, if you want to post something on the forum with some more specifics, I'd be glad to try to help you out.
Would a screenshot of where he's at help?
Let's see. This is just, I'm going to sound like an idiot when I put this thing up, but what the heck?
I just say start a thread on the forum and we can we'll help you figure it out.
That's very nice, Bob. Thank you. Hey, are you using the free version of ChatGPT or the paid version?
I'm using the paid version. I tell you why. I had to develop kind of a web backend for a database that I didn't design, and it's a medical database, and it's, there's 300-400 tables in this thing, and they didn't use when you add something to a table, it auto adds the ID. Well, they don't do that. They use this stored procedure that does this fancy schmancy thing for how it figures out what the next available ID is, because so much data is hitting the database at a certain time. And I basically was over my head. So I'm going through these stored procedures. I'm not the best. I mean, I understand basics, but I'm not a pro at it. And I basically took the stored procedure, I dropped it in ChatGPT, and I said, "What does this do?" That was my question, and it was like, bam! It's like, these variables do this. this is what it's doing here. And it gives me like point by point what the stored procedure does. And I was able to basically, engineer it from that. But once I saw that, I'm just like, okay, this is a useful tool. I mean, this is worth $20 a month for me. Cause at this point I use it damn near every day trying to troubleshoot issues. I mean, it knows about cascading style sheets. It knows about JavaScript. It knows about JSON. I mean, it helps to troubleshoot. It helps me troubleshoot stuff a lot faster.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's worth $20. I mean, because you have the free version's cool, but there's limits to how much you can actually use it.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, we're about an hour into our meetup here. If anybody has any closing questions, now would be the time, and then we'll be signing off here shortly. Last call for questions.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks,
My
Brian.
pleasure.
Appreciate all you do.
Yeah,
Thank
Very
you.
much so.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Brian. You've been an excellent supporter in the community. You're just loved by everyone. All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us today. We do appreciate it. We hope you have a very safe and enjoyable weekend, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month, the second Tuesday of every month, 4 o'clock Netherlands time.
Friday. Second Friday.
Second, what did I say?
Tuesday.
Don't listen to me, read my mind. The second Friday for me. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah.
All right,
you.
thanks.